Let's go,
Hey
my bro.
team, welcome into the Warriorholic. This is episode 1 of the off-season footy yarns. Today I've got a very special guest, Mr. Ash Thomas, Warriors and NRL creator there. You'll find him on YouTube and on TikTok these days. Welcome in, my brother.
Welcome, my bro. Thank you so much for having me on your platform. Amazing stuff, bro. I love it. I love the look.
Yeah, cheers, bro. It's nice to finally connect with you. We had a quick sort of yarn there on Fanatics show a while back. There were the big team effort, so it was hard to get a chat going on. So hopefully we'll get a bit of a yarn going on tonight. So for the viewers, I guess, trying to keep the old energy up for Warriors fans in the off season, I'm going to try and get the odd random footy fan, Warriors fan, on for a bit of a chat about their story. So as you can tell, there's a little bit of a twang to the brothers' accent here, which tells me he's not from South Auckland.
100%.
So whereabouts are you based, brother?
So yeah, I'm based in Brisbane, Australia, my man. I got no New Zealand connection really at all. None of family and all that sort of stuff. My wife's half Samoan. That's about as close I get to New Zealand. She's got family over in New Zealand and that. But yeah, Australia, bro. I'm all Australian.
How the hell did an Australian from Brisbane end up being a Warriors fan?
Oh man, long story. Sort of quickly touched on it a little bit in our last live stream and that. But when I was growing up and that, Darren Lockyer was my favorite player and stuff like that. And obviously one of the biggest foes to Darren Lockyer growing up was Stacey Jones. So sort of started to fall in love with Stacey Jones, sort of like, the smaller player that was standing up to all the big boys and stuff. And then, when I became a full-fledged Warriors fan, honestly, was when Shaun Johnson. When I first saw Shaun Johnson, I saw his highlight package. And then I started watching the under-20s a lot more because he was playing in under-20s back when he had the headgear on and that. Moved on into actually watching the Warriors, backdating all the history and stuff, watching as much as I could. I watched footy back when I was younger and all that. As I said, being a Darren Lockyer fan, just watched footy growing up. But never really had like a full-fledged, like something I wanted to follow all the way through until I saw Shaun Johnson, became a Warriors fan from there. And yeah, absolutely love it.
Random, man. It's
I know.
It's cool to hear the story. Like, it's been quite interesting this season, like with the Warriors Nation guys or Richie and that. It shows like there's a lot of people over in Australia. You got Ruin Hammer and Aussies and stuff, with a bit of a Kiwi connection. So it's good to see someone over on the Queensland coast there representing the club, mate. Love your channel. How long have you been doing that?
So honestly, I'm totally lost on how long I've been doing it for. I've been doing it consistently now for probably a couple of years. I started off doing gaming stuff because me and the mates love a little bit of a gaming session and that. But ever since I was a little boy, and my mum and dad could attest to this and that, I used to run outside, grab the papers, and I absolutely love sport. It was, I never really went to high school as much as I really kind of wanted to, and that to get a degree or anything or become like a sports journalist and that. But when I started doing gaming videos, started to put things together, I started to fall in love with many big YouTube channels and stuff, like UK YouTube channels for soccer YouTube channels and that. And I was like, why can't I do that exact same thing with rugby league? And then Bloke in a Bar became massive in that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start talking about sport and things that I love on my YouTube channel. And the Warriors is definitely one key piece to that. And it's definitely the one thing that definitely took off for me. So I started off doing gaming videos. Then I went to fantasy chat. So I was doing a lot of NRL fantasy, Supercoach.
Fantasy, eh?
Yeah, bro, I love a little bit of fantasy. I love all types of sport, as probably we all do, you know what I mean? So we don't just sit to rugby league at times, but I did NFL fantasy at times, NBA fantasy, but I wanted to get back to my roots of NRL football, and I love rugby league football. So that's the most sort of stuff you see on my channel is all rugby league content at the moment.
Yeah, mate, it's random. Like, I used to watch YouTube a lot back in the day, but then I sort of drifted into watching Facebook videos.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, man, I've got like a TikTok generation attention span these days that I like the short form, and I found that for some reason Facebook's algorithm seemed to match my interest at the time. So I haven't really, I'd always dreamed of being a YouTuber, but I'd never really got in so much to watching sports-based YouTube other than Rick Shields, who's a golf guy. I always dreamed of being a golf YouTuber, but I'm shit at golf. So I thought, maybe like the useless fat golf guy could be like the kind of niche I could get into. But I've made enough. Yeah, it's random. Like it was the end of the last year. I think I started using this Warriorholic handle when I was calling an SEN in Australia.
Yep.
And then I thought, start of the preseason for bugger it, just pointed the iPhone at myself sitting on the couch, started talking shit, and lo and behold. So I'm still only in my first year, so you're like, my superior when it comes to that. But so you started out with Stacey, you get to Shaun Johnson. What sort of year are you talking there?
So this is about 2010, 2011. As I said before, I've watched footy like ever since. Like I can remember memories back in 2002. I actually, as speaking about like, Darren Lockyer and Stacey Jones, way back, I have a memory of watching a Warriors game against the Broncos back when the Broncos had the full blue kit. Being growing up in Brisbane, a lot of, obviously everyone knows that Channel 9 only really play Broncos games and stuff like that. You have like the Friday night game, the Thursday night game and the Sunday. And usually the Warriors games don't get played then. It's always the Saturday games and stuff like that. So you don't get to see too much. But at times you used to see the Warriors versus the Broncos. And I remember there's one fond memory of me watching, Kevin Campion and Shane Webke punch on. And because half my family love the Broncos and half my family absolutely hate the Broncos. So it was awesome, like little vibe going on there. You had some cheering for Kevin Campion and you got some cheering for Webke, and it was just an amazing moment in that. So I've been watching footy in that all my life, but just to sit down and follow a team really was, 2011. I kind of fully jumped into the Warriors.
Bandwagon from hell, bro.
Bandwagon, yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And I've never looked back, man. I've just got, like, as we all know, fans, my whole view set on a fan in general is we fall in love with our team no matter what, because it makes us feel something. It makes us feel special. Every time we turn on TV, we fall in love with it, whether we're a fan of 2023, 2024 now, or we're going back when 95, where everyone started with the Warriors fan base, or whatever team you support. No matter what, it's, whether you jump off the bandwagon, jump back on the bandwagon, usually you're a fan because you become in love with the football team. So that's really what happened with me with the Warriors. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with Shaun Johnson, obviously, when I just saw what he was doing on a football field. I hadn't seen that since Benji back in the day. And even then, like, Shawnee was doing some just classy things on a football field. So I fell in love with that, bro.
Mate. It's funny because I think I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but before, other than the Warriors, like, I don't have any franchise teams I've always been fans of. I'm really transient. Like, NRL, I went from the Tigers to Manly to Knights to all over the place until the Warriors came in.
Yeah.
And probably other than like the New Zealand national sides, sort of drifted in and out, like the Hurricanes, mad about them 1 minute, then didn't really follow them much. So I don't know why it is with the Warriors. And I think, that you get certain people who are really passionate about every one of the teams they follow, and they struggle to comprehend transient fans. And I think we've both talked about this. Like, man, I'm all for any bandwagoner who wants to jump on, whether it be for 5 minutes or 5 weeks or 5 years, because it's the more the merrier, man. If we fill Mount Smart every week with screaming fans, I don't care how long they've been there.
Exactly, bro. And a strong show of respect is those fans that jump in for the first day, but also look back at the history of the club and fall in love with what the club has built over the years. The Warriors haven't had the most success as a franchise in the NRL, but the one thing I've always loved about the Warriors is their family culture. As I said before, my wife being, half Samoan, her actual cousin, Evania Polita, played for the Warriors NRLW team when that first came into the competition. Awesome. And she fell in love with the culture, bro, because it brought her back to her Samoan roots, because she never really got in touch with that with many other teams. She played for the Aussie Sevens that won gold and all that, and the Rugby Sevens. And she never felt in touch with her culture with that team. It wasn't really loved about. And that when she went to the Warriors, they had culture nights. She learned so much more, and she fell in love with it. And now she's playing with the Titans, obviously, if you watch NRLW and that. She's absolutely killing it. But I always, keep her on the back end. I'm like, if the Warriors come back in the comp, man, you got to go play for my Warriors, man.
Yeah, mate. So the whole, like, the Warriors family side of things is something that it's the whole, there's no real word for it in English, like the whānau, the whole, like the community, I guess, that it's one thing that really makes me feel connected to, like, a really big group here in New Zealand. And, when I went to my first game up there, I didn't go with anyone, didn't really know anyone there. And I just turned up and I felt like I was part of it. Like, I couldn't imagine going to a Hurricanes game by myself or a movie by myself. I feel like a right muppet. But you go to a Warriors game and it doesn't feel like it's just you there,
Well, here, brother, that doesn't just stop at Mount Smart. When you go to Suncorp and you go to Seabus and that, and you wear your Warriors jersey at those games and that, where we play the Broncos or the Titans and stuff, you just catch eyes with Warriors fans, man. And it's just such a good feeling. Like, everyone looks at each other and that. And I've walked around, like, I got mates that are Broncos fans, or Doggies fans, that Gold Coast fans and stuff. You walk around like they're fans. They interact with each other. It's not like the same sort of thing, but the Warriors fans, they just embrace you. If you got that jersey on, if you're wearing any sort of colors that is Warriors related, people will say hello and say what's going on. Like, I had a comment on my video a little while ago, and like this lady was saying that, she was from Penrith, and she started following the Warriors. And as soon as she put that jersey on, she never felt so much connection in the community, where people actually coming up to her and go, "Oh, you're a Warriors fan," like, that sort of stuff. And like, that's a beautiful thing that the Warriors actually have. No matter what, we always seem to be connected, no matter like how far away from New Zealand, whether you're not even grew up in New Zealand and that, you're always connected by the side. So it's really amazing thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if I spent half my time in Tokyo, and if I saw someone with an All Blacks jersey on, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to go and say g'day, if you know what I mean. I'd probably maybe give them a nod. But if I saw anyone with anything to do with the Warriors, bro, I'm chasing them down like a stalker.
Legit. Legit, bro.
And that's one part of it, like it gets a little bit frustrating when people get a little bit too intense and get a little bit toxic at times. But again, half that's just uncontrolled passion, I guess, and that, wanting to win. And I was having a bit of a chat with Martin Devlin about this the other day, that I reckon the All Blacks kind of ruined being a sporting fan for Kiwis, because they've been so successful, particularly like, someone your generation, you went through that whole Richie McCaw era where they were close to invincible, and you expected perfection and winning every week, and you got it. And then you think every other team out of this country should do the same thing. But we've got 5 or 6 million people, bro. I think you guys have got 26 over there, up against the Yanks with about 500. It's like, man, talk about unrealistic expectations. And I think that's where some of the Warriors fans probably come from too.
Yeah, I totally get that side of things, bro. Where obviously, as I said, you said growing up through like the All Blacks era and that, like, I only remember when I was a tiny boy, obviously George Gregan and all that with the Wallabies, we had the tiny little part of success. And then after that, it's like, if the All Blacks lose, it's like a major thing. It's like, oh my God, like, what's going on? Is everything like going downhill? Like, they need to sack managers, this and that, like, what's going on? But yeah, it's such a mental franchise. But with the Warriors, it's always like there is that expectation of being that one town, obviously the one country team. But I feel like now Webby's there. Now everything's going the way it's going. Hopefully we get some development structures there too, where people can look at the Warriors now as a successful franchise, and we can get some championships and that.
Yeah, mate. I totally agree. I mean, I think it's it's great being associated with the whānau, but it's going to be great when it's been associated with success. So I'm really looking forward to that kick in. So, we had a pretty tough time there over the COVID years. Webby's announced as the new coach back at the end of last year. What was your take when you heard that he was named as coach? Did you even know who he is?
Honestly, bro, I had like a very small amount of knowledge on who Andrew Webster was. You can actually have receipts on this. Shout out to Hold the Ball. He had a live stream with me, and we spoke about the first time when like Webby got signed to us. And my honest first take was, I hope the Warriors aren't doing exactly what we do all the time, where we're buying coaches and stuff that we have a whole lot of promise in, that we think, they're very young and haven't proven themselves to a level to be like, this is going to take our franchise to a whole new level. We've done that in the past multiple times. And I've even looked at coaches in our like previous history, like Stephen Kearney and Nathan Brown. I looked at their resume when we signed them, and everyone was saying, they're going to turn our team around. Like, they've done so well with like development systems and all that sort of stuff. But Nathan Brown took that Knights team from like last to 13th. Like, who was to ever think that he was going to take our Warriors squad to top 4? Like, it was never going to happen, in my opinion. So when we signed Webby, I was like, I don't see anything. Like, he won a comp with the West Tigers under 20s, I think, back in the day. He was bouncing around. He was in our system, I think, with McFadden back in the day as well. And then he bounced obviously to the Panthers system. But I still was kind of like, he hasn't proven himself to a level to be like, all right, the Warriors, you know, we're going to take him in. We're going to make big strides, because there's always been something with our team. We've always had the talent. There's always that one thing that everyone was saying is like, we need that one key piece to unlock everything we have. And I was waiting for that coach, and finally it's come. He's completely surprised me, man, because when I first saw it, I was kind of like, I hope we're not making a mistake. Rookie coach, how's he going to change our squad? And bro, like eating my words, man, like, because I absolutely adore our coach.
So when did he start or did you start to buy into him? Was it, once the season kicked off, or was it the stuff he was saying before the season started?
So I was obviously watching as many press conferences that he came out early season, and I was kind of like very skeptical early on. That first preseason game against the West Tigers, I was like, okay, all right, we look okay, but we've done this before where our preseason looks okay. Like, we've had multiple preseasons going up against the Melbourne Storm where our team looks strong. I would say that first night's game, you saw that we had resilience, and that stuck with me really early, because the amount of Warriors teams that we've had that when things start not to go our way, they really tumble to not go our way at all, and we have to grind back to something like crazy. So the ones that come to mind obviously is like that Cronulla Sharks game where the Sharks were down to 11 men, and we still end up finding a way to lose that game, unfortunately. We've had that in our side for over the COVID years. People will always argue that we've never been a successful club, but before those COVID years, we've had success of like the 2018 side that made the grand final, made the final. Sorry, didn't make the grand final, but made the finals. They were a great team. Like, we had like the 2008 team before the 2011-12 team, and back in 2002. We've always had these teams that get there, but the COVID years started to show where we were starting to find cracks in our side, where, like, I don't know whether it was because we moved to Australia, where we were falling away in contests and we were kind of like losing our head a little bit. And then, in that Knights game, it was like we saw resilience. I loved what Barnett was doing very early on, where he just had this like effort and aggression. And I was like, I hadn't seen that from our Warriors side since, like, we've had obviously Kate Evans back in the day that was trying to throw hands, and Matt Lodge that was trying to do these certain things and that. But for some reason, it felt different with Barnett. I don't know what it was. So ever since, the early games, the Knights game, and then I started to see the change. And I think the full change that got me was that Cronulla Sharks game where Shawnee kicked the penalty goal to put us over. You can actually, there's receipts on that too. You can check me out on the Hold the Ball live stream with that. I was like, called it, there's like Shawnee kicking us into a whole new era. And it honestly felt like that. When we came back from that deficit, I was like, okay, we got a team on our hands here.
Yeah, mate, I'd never even heard of him because I was in Japan when he was here previously. So he was never in the media or whatever. And I only ever watched the games. I didn't see any press conferences, didn't watch any news about it. So I didn't even know he'd been an ex-coach here. But the first time I heard him talk, it's just like, shit, the guy knows how to communicate. He knows how to speak English. After Brown and Kearney, as I said, obviously, the boys, they both spoke in tongues, and I just thought, man, how does that inspire anybody? But he was really consistent in what he said, and he said he was wasn't here to make the 8. So why would you limit yourself at that? That's like, okay. And that first trial game, what I noticed was the fitness for a trial game.
Yeah.
For that and for the Knights, like, we hit the ground running, which I'd never seen before, and it just seemed like a different kind of fitness, because I remember in 2018 when they ran out for that first game. Who was it against over in Perth? Was it Canberra?
The Rabbitohs.
Sorry?
The Rabbitohs.
Was it?
The Rabbitohs game.
We just looked jacked, bro. Like, whoa.
Yep.
But it was, it was a lot of fitness and a couple of really good guys, whereas this time our game plans and our structures and stuff were very different. 100%. And you saw that from the trial game and then to the Knights and stuff. It was consistent, and I also liked the way he was never happy.
Yeah.
Like, he'd say, that was good, but so that's, I was a pretty early adopter in old Andrew Webster.
But also, like, the one thing I'll touch on quickly, bro, while we're on that point as well with his communication style and stuff, I also noticed that, like, I always go back to, I kind of wish Walshy was able to stay in a way to see what type of player Walshy could have became under us with Webster. Because when I noticed with Nathan Brown, like I know you just touched on, like, he was never happy with like how we were getting to and that, but he vocalized it in such a different way than what Nathan Brown vocalized it, if that makes sense. Whenever I heard Brownie talk about, like, when the press was like, oh, Walshy's been amazing today, what do you think of Walshy's future and all that, he always it was kind of like stabbing him, like every time it was kind of like, yeah, but he did this wrong, and was kind of like ruining his confidence in a way. I understand why, because the kid, like, he's got a massive, I wouldn't say ego, but he's got a massive confidence to him, and you don't want to get that to a whole different level. But judging with all the people that Webby have under him now, just the way he talks to the boys, and the way, when he's in a press conference, he shoots over to Tohu. He allows Tohu to speak at moments. Just the way he does his stuff, man. He's very professional with that. And I would have loved to see if Walshy would have took a love to that as well. Yeah. And to see him go to that same level what he is at with the Broncos now in our squad as well.
Yeah, because I've always looked at, there's certain players, like I'd say Walsh is one, Latrell, guys like Cody Walker, Cheese. They've got such big personalities. Munster would be another one. I think there's only certain cultures that can control it. So maybe the Broncos, the Storm, Easts, or the Panthers. And I wouldn't even say South's doing it very well with Latrell and them at the moment. So I'd be, like you say, I'd be curious, but I would say that my guess would be that we won't see him recruit any of those big personality players.
No.
Because it's an effort to turn that mindset around. I think it's easier to turn skill around, but if you're not a team player, and I think that's one thing that they got really right, and we'll have to give a credit to Brownie and a couple of the other guys who were there before Webby, who recruited this group this year, and they're all team players, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know during our COVID years, there was always like this slight hope our teams would turn it around, even though we're on like a massive decline. Like, I have memories, obviously, we had a Broncos game very early on last season. I'm pretty sure it was last season, where we're running some really good sets with Adam Fanua-Blake, Jesse Arthurs, all those boys on the side and that. And you just saw there was like something about our squad there, but it just wasn't clicking over because we were taken away from our homeland and the boys weren't fully, rooted into Australia, obviously not being at home. Shawnee wasn't happy. There was so many different things. But you always saw, like, with our squad, there's this little thing that's always been there with the Warriors. You can see that if everything comes together, we'll be a powerhouse. It just always has been there. Everyone's spoken about it. It's just waiting for that time to come. And being, the amount of talent that we have in New Zealand at the moment as well, and we'll touch on it a little bit later on with the exciting future that we actually do have coming. Hopefully it continues to keep rolling on, because if Webby taps into that, we got something special on our hands.
Yeah, what gave me confidence about that is, I don't know whether you saw the SG Ball boys play and how much you saw a cup. All of them were playing Webby ball. That was one of the other key points, that when I saw the first SG Ball game against South, I'm like, hold on a minute. This looks very familiar. And if he's managed to cascade his game plan and his culture, the fitness, down into those grades, it's like, this guy's got some serious influence. And I think it just, the fact that, I don't know, maybe becoming an NRL head coach for some people is like becoming a politician. It's a way to keep yourself in the limelight because you weren't quite good enough to be an actor, and maybe you're a bit old to be an NRL player. There's one player, and coach in particular sort of sticks in my mind at the moment, whether I wonder if it's a little bit too much about him. But I feel like Webby makes it about everyone, and I think his it lights his fire seeing other people's success. Not so he's very selfless, and he just sort of deflects praise.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's an act. I think that's how he really feels.
Yeah.
And, when you talk to the boys about how long it took for them to buy in, they just said, man, when he just started talking about what we could do and, how he could make us do great things, it was like within an hour.
Yeah.
To take a fractured squad that had, few new guys and people had, been through that COVID era. And I don't even know whether it was just about being in Australia. I think there were guys there that never wanted to be Warriors. They just needed a place to play. And that, if you're like a guy like Jazz, bro, when your heart is your Warrior or Bunty or whatever, you've been here your whole career, how would you want to play with guys like that don't really want to be there? So I think there was that aspect of it as much as being away from home. But I think all those guys that pissed me off at the time, but I'm so glad they left. And I'm so glad Brownie left because he didn't want to be here. So now it feels like we've got this group of players who all of them genuinely want to be here, even though we've had a couple of guys who, you hear rumours that they're a little bit homesick or whatever, which is natural. But I think he's building that culture, and we'll get on to with what to expect in the future of where people want to come and play for him already.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll be good. But just before we get on to that, I'd be curious to get your whole take on your 2023 experience, how you felt being part of that, and what were the key standouts as far as performances or players or the way we were playing certain games.
Bro, man, what an experience. You've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. It was an experience. To start this year, when you start the year and you say my team is going to challenge for the 8, I never really said that too much this year, even before that, but I always said that my team is going to compete. And everyone was just looking at us like the Warriors the last couple of years just don't compete. I'm like, just trust me, man. They're going to compete. They're going to compete. And, this year they finally made that an actual thing. And to actually have that fulfillment, to watch my side go for 80 minutes every week and give love to the jersey, give effort to the jersey, that is the biggest thing that really was separated this year from multiple other years. Going through, obviously to start, as we said, when we saw that preseason, we saw a couple of our little young key pieces that are coming through the grade. And obviously Lukey Metcalf, one of our signings, and that when we saw him in the West Tigers game, when he was touching the ball, I was like, oh, I'm starting to get the jitters now. All right, the season's coming. The Knights game kicked off and we won that game. It was a tough game, but we made it happen. Chancey in that game, I'm pretty sure it was that game that he made that try-saving tackle on KP. A couple of big moments like that. And I was like, all right, this season is going to be a fun one. And then, obviously we got a little bit of a roll on, people were starting to talk a little bit, but it wasn't just there yet. It wasn't really happening just yet. That Sharkies game, bro, honestly, that really always stays in my mind, and it just continues to stay in my mind where I, as I said, me and Hold the Ball about to do a live stream, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game, and Hold the Ball's like, bro, I'm only going to be there for the halftime, and we're going to go from halftime afterwards or whatever's going on. Bro, you can understand. I'm sitting there doing my notes on the game. I'm watching the game and going, all right, okay, what do I say? We did not look good at that half. Our defense was getting chopped to bits. I didn't know what was going on because, from the start of our season, I was like, everything's not really happening. And is this our first stumble? And then you saw the boys, go into the sheds. And then when Shawnee came in, obviously everything happened that what happened. And then Shawnee came out and did the talk with the media after, and he was saying, the confidence of the boys. We came out and we said, just do something special. We're going to do something special. The resilience in the boys, all the key words that he used in those sentences. And he said, up the wires. And that's kind of just all right, we're on something special. I'm really, really excited for the season. A couple of big key standouts for this season in general too. Tohu Harris taking over his leadership role as well as the captain this year. You can show how great that what Webby has done for him in his career. The years before in that, he was always a silent leader. He was always our warrior, but was never really on the pitch as much as we wanted him to be. This year, he had a lot of time on the pitch as much as he could. Obviously, he was still wrapped up throughout the whole season. But as I touched on before, whenever he was in press conferences, and I don't know whether it was Webby just kind of building his confidence, to start talking to the media a certain way. Webby was talking the way he was talking, but he'd also throw to Tohu and he'd be like, he's our captain, he's our leader. And it really showed he has all these systems in the right places. And when I kept seeing all these little things, we started the season, we had a really good rock hard resilience defense. And then we're kind of a little bit later after that, we're starting to go, all right, our attack needs to have something because we were starting to lacking on the attacking end. Webby started to make a couple of key changes in there. Lukey Metcalf came back from his hamstring injury and our attack started to come and we started to go really, really hard in our attack. Maybe our possession and our completion rate started to fall a little bit, but we saw Webby change little things during the year. And it was kind of he was putting the puzzle pieces together to our season to get to this grand final. If you watch the whole season through, it's kind of like a storybook of the chapters. The start of it was resilience, building defense. Next part was obviously, you know, taking down bigger teams. And the next part is obviously building our attack to end the season, because we need to attack and put points on the board to contend with these top teams at the end of the season. So obviously we didn't do that to the fullest extent this season. Obviously we didn't beat a top 4 team this season, which is pretty disappointing in our way of that sort of thing. But honestly, this is, in my opinion, if I'm thinking of it the right way, I'm thinking of it as a storybook right now of Webby's tenure as our coach. Our next chapter is next season, is to get on that level of beating a top 4 team and start to really find the clogs ticking over, because we have that in us. We got the talent in us. So that was my overall opinion on the season. Absolute success. We saw players that before have been in other clubs that have never found success in those clubs. Dallin Martinez-Zelezniak, Marcelo Montoya, the Doggies. I'm sure the Doggies would absolutely love to have those players back right now, but we've turned them around to what they are right now. It's absolutely amazing. Mitch Barnett, from what he came from at the Knights, he always had that aggression, always stayed in the game. But what he's got now is he's got that hard steel. He's got the line break ability. He's got a passing game in him now, and he's just our leader from the middle through our aggression. Dylan Walker, you know, before we signed Dylan Walker, I was kind of hoping he wasn't another, when we signed Adam Blair and Isaac Luke, I was hoping it wasn't another end of career sort of play with Dylan Walker. But man, the utility of Dylan Walker is absolutely amazing. To pair him up with the Ball brothers with Tavanga, man, the season to me, absolute success, and I love the ride. And the one thing that summed it up for me, going to that final game at Suncorp, walking down the Caxton Street and seeing all our Warriors fans out there cheering and being just as loud as those Broncos fans, because that's one thing not many clubs could ever do, going to the Suncorp Stadium. So that's what teased it off. That's what the Warriors were this season. We were a franchise that revived, and now hopefully we're here to stay.
Yeah, mate. I mean, that, I had a couple of chats with I was up about that, is the crowd finding their voice on both sides of the Tasman. I think when you that para game, when you could hear Richie on his drum, and the first time you could hear the Warriors chant over the para fans, I'm like, what? And then you get up to Gold Coast. That game was insane. I think we had 2-1 fans there.
Yep.
And then see all those shots of the boys in that pub, singing out on the balconies, and hearing seeing Broncos fans posting it online. Yep. It's like, what? So that really makes me want to get to Australia next year, hopefully for Magic Round, or if not that, one of the I'd like to get to the Gold Coast game. Well, the Kiwis that seem to get there, or a Broncos one, or maybe even Dolphins. It's just been part of that experience now that the Warriors fans are finding their voice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nothing worse than just the Warriors, dun, 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 Warriors, dun, dun, dun. One shot pony, but all the different chants. Yeah, so I'm keen to get a group of fans together online over the holidays and try and come up with some chants, and maybe get someone like Jared, who's really good at production from Warriors Anonymous there, the man behind the Up the Wire song, and put them all up on TikTok, with the words, and see if we can get people to remember them before the season gets going, just to take it to that next level. Even watching the I don't know if you saw any of the Rugby World Cup games this weekend.
Yeah,
the noise at those games is great. With those European teams, with that Zombie, man, that's spine tingling.
Mm-hmm.
Reminded me of that Knights game, and I just want that to continue and to continue to build.
So you got something special too, bro. I do want to touch on for the season, because obviously you got kids, and I think we said it on the live stream, and that I think did you say your daughter became a Warriors fan this year? She started to sit down, and I think that touches really deep with a lot of fans this year. And this is what shows of how good of a year that we actually did have. Where you have a young mind that sat there and watched all the fans get together and do what we done, and we done something special this season to where she wanted to be a part of something. And this is the start of what we need to start doing. You know what I mean? And it's special to be a Warriors fan right now. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I like those Spiro men getting into it, because it's just something that brings that next generation in. Because it feels like we're an aging fan base, if you know what I mean. All day oneers, and some of those day oneers were 50 when they started, and they get into the end of their careers.
Shout out to the day oneers.
So you got to start bringing in the next generation on and off the field. So, and particularly with the girls, when you go to the to Mount Smart, there's a lot of female fans there now, young, middle-aged, older. So it's kind of cool to be a Warriors fan, which is something we've never really had with rugby league in New Zealand. It was always that, I don't know, industrial kind of kind of game, right?
The difference between union and rugby league, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably similar in Australia. I think rugby union's in the private schools and stuff. But, yeah, I mean, for me, to sum up 2023 would be the Knights game, mate. Being part of that crowd, I think it was the most dominant performance. I think the second Sharks game was outstanding, but that clinical 100%. Win against the Knights showed me what we're capable of. You know, the Broncos brought us, and the Panthers games brought us back to reality, that we could see a couple of layers that are still missing. That shit, I think it's 10 years now. The Panthers have had those pathways in place, and the Broncos under, year 3 or year 4 under Kevy.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've just got to hope 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road with these pathways, stuff's going to get really interesting. But I still think it could be really interesting next year. And if you think about, before we get on to what next year will look like, without being negative, just like in reflection, where are the things that you think, we will probably be looking, not necessarily as far as getting new players, but as far as the way we play? Are there any areas you think that he'll be looking to work on to strengthen a little bit heading into next year?
Obviously, you know, we built on our defense very well from years past to this year, to where it actually became really noticeable to other fans that our defense has gotten stronger. But going into the bigger games against top 4 teams, I felt like our ruck speed, like we could not hold down the ruck as much as we could. Our wrestle, working with the city kickboxing boys is going to be amazing for us to continue doing that, so we can learn how to slow down the ruck a little bit more, because that is definitely a key part to rugby league. If you can't slow down the ruck, we saw that with Australia versus Samoa over the weekend. The ruck speed for Australia was just on a different level, and we saw it against the Broncos when we played the Broncos. Obviously, you know, when we have bigger forwards, because we do have a lot of bigger bodies than some other teams in the competition right now, even though our second unit is a little bit of a smaller body unit that moves side to side very well, I do want to see us have a better side to side defense, if that makes sense. Sometimes I do feel like we get caught lacking when the boys are trying to get back up from the ruck, and then people are darting in behind our ruck and our marker work. So that is definitely an area I do want to fix on. I also do want to get back to where we were playing very high percentage football, not too many areas in that started creeping our game a little bit later on in the season, to where we were defending in possibly the worst parts of the field and that. So I do want to see us turn that around. If I'm looking at key pieces where I do think we need to grow squad wise, everyone's been saying obviously we do maybe need another prop, someone that's going to take over and help out when Ads is off the field, or someone that can continue on a momentum in that. And that's really hard to find at the moment, but I believe we have that in our junior system. It's just going to take time for him to come through. Big Zion, I'm really, really excited for if he's going to come through. I think he's someone for the future. We need a lot of players like him down. And as you said, the more we play football the way we do, I'm sure Webby will attract a lot of talent back to New Zealand. Whether or not we want people like IPAP and all that back in New Zealand as well, because I'm sure that IPAP, there was already rumours coming out of West Tigers, whatever, when he first signed that contract, that he wanted to come back to New Zealand. And now seeing Webby and all that, maybe we will have pulls on players like IPAP coming back, and players that have been playing for the Kiwis under Maguire, and that maybe he's going to find that little bit of seeing Webby doing what he's doing for New Zealand. Maybe they want to play for New Zealand as well as the Kiwis, and build New Zealand as this big franchise. So these are the key areas I do agree with. I feel like, you know, with the signings of RTS playing centre, and centre was a thing that I wanted to touch on the start of last year. I felt like our centre position on one side was finding, you know, obviously Valia, he was kind of very inexperienced at times, and then we had Barry that was very inexperienced, and a lot of it came down to their development systems. But now with RTS coming there, and I feel like our centre depth is growing with Ali Leatoa, he's coming through. So it was Leatoa. Yeah, Leatoa. I've got him mixed up with or Gusatino or whatever. It just popped up in my head. I don't know why. But you know what I mean? Like, we got all these young boys that are coming through that we're finding depth. So we need to keep growing like that. The Panthers have proven that for many seasons, and buying players that just fill a gap for a time being. And then those young players come through and they take over, you know, Isaac Tungo taking over, and they've grown into players that what they have. So we have that in New Zealand, and I just want to see that continue to grow. So nothing major, just kind of little tweaks to our offense, kind of tweaks to our defense, and just continue to work on our fitness and all that little things. But Yeah, I'm sure Webby definitely has it under.
I think like one thing I found is, and it will probably come as well, as like that explosion into the tackle. We've probably got it more in the edges, but in our middles there. I mean, Bunty, he hits it hard and aggressive, but maybe doesn't quite get the post contacts that a guy like a Flegler gets. And I think that's what the Broncos' strength was with Flegler, Carrigan, Haas. All of those guys hit the line hard and bend it. Interesting, getting back to your point about the ruck speed, we actually had a faster play of the ball than the Broncos and the Panthers in those games we lost. Which
crazy.
Means I think they're not necessarily holding us down, but with the way we hit the line, so Adam hits the line and he makes the momentum, but then once they call held, then it's the play, the ball's not that fast, but they're actually getting to ground quicker. So they make the momentum and get back up quicker. Whereas when our guys are kind of struggling through the tackles, that gives that fraction of a second for the opposition to catch their breath. And say it's 2 seconds of play of that struggling. In some cases, it's probably 3 or 4 seconds struggling every one of Adam's runs to make those post-contact meters. He's making 20 runs, times 3 seconds. So that's a couple of minutes of rest time you're giving the opposition. Whereas if you can get forward and hit to the ground and play again, that's when the opposition's defense is constantly backtracking. And I think that's one thing I feel like it's a level we need to add a little bit, is that momentum. They were talking on SEN about it. I'm trying to think of who it was now. Maybe it was one of the Matty John shows or whatever, that post-contact meters isn't a huge one. No. It's like total meters. As a bigger indicator. And it's really interesting, like, because I've never been coached to play rugby league ever, or by a really good player to learn the game. So I'm kind of learning on the fly. Whereas you hear those guys like the Matty Johns podcast with him and Cooper Cronk, the levels they break it down to, and that's probably dumbed down for the average fan, right?
Yeah.
So can you imagine the levels these guys are getting to and at their trainings and stuff?
Well, that's where, when we come back to our defense as well, I felt like our defense from multiple times was very passive. So where we were more so, where the NRL started to turn into grabbing under the ball, holding up, getting 3-man in, getting him to the ground. But every time I saw us do exactly the same thing as multiple other teams, I felt like other teams were getting way too many meters on us and they were getting in a really good field position in the years past. We're slowly changing that. Obviously, when you look at the Panthers, the way their sets are structured, their backline do so much work in attack to where they, post-contact meters come through them mainly. The front rowers do a lot of work, obviously, in 4th, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, sometimes in moments to where they get their meters worth. But usually the big reason why Leota and Fisher Harris are so key to the Panthers is defensive-wise. The way they get up in your face is just on a whole different level to multiple other different teams in the competition. And a lot of that, obviously will come down to maybe changing some structures to where we can start implementing that as well. But back to that post-contact meters thing as well, I do want to touch on just before I still got it in my head. I think that maybe will change a little bit more with RTS coming back into the club. Knowing RTS when he played for us and even playing for the Roosters and hearing, the press conferences, him coming out and hearing he was on the pitch, was it? You got the on Sky Sports, the show with Adam Blair and that.
Yeah.
Not Adam Blair. Monty was interviewing him. Yeah. And he was saying that he wants to be in more of a Joey Manu role. I'm sure more post-contact meters and meter work will come from that with him and Chancey doing the work, because Chance is well known for that 3rd, 4th tackle. He'll do a double hit up in multiple sets. Sheck was known for that as well, and that's where it can get really terrorizing through the middle to where our forwards can end up doing more of the aggressive work in defense. So we're talking Barnett, we're talking Jazzy. I'm really excited to see that sort of implementation come next year, if that comes our way, if that's the way Webby really wants to play.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I think we did a good job this year of, the first 3 hit-ups were generally backs, which gave our forwards that bit of a break. And the other interesting thing, I thought a couple of times there that we're intentionally passive a little bit in our defense.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? we kind of like, I think it was the Knights game where they came back at us for the last 15 minutes of the first half.
Yep.
Or maybe it's the first 10 minutes of the second half. I can't remember, but I said to ours up watching it live is you could see we were just absorbing tackles or absorbing rather than aggressively trying to drive them back for about maybe 15 minutes. But we were still managing to keep them, you know, around halfway or maybe into our 10-metre line, but not much more. Yeah. But as soon as then we got something flicked the momentum, then we started to put our foot down with the defence again. I think it was one of the kicks that Sean put right down into the right-hand corner there, and we managed to hit Kalen and Maju really quickly. And then they just put that foot down and got aggressive again. I wonder if it's a way that they conserve energy that we always see finish strong in the games.
Yep. I agree, bro. I agree. I'd love to talk to Webby and find that out. But then again, talking to Webby on a like social platform, I don't know if he'll give away all those little key areas and stuff, you know?
No.
But talking to him one-on-one would be amazing to know whether like that is a game plan to work, because we've seen it in past seasons. I thought we did that a little bit way too much in the COVID years, where I felt like we were very, very passive in our defense.
Yeah,
it started to change a little bit more, you know what I mean? So yeah, I wonder if that is a little game plan that he does play within the game in itself.
The speed of the game, you've got to find some way to
rest up.
You know, it's not sustainable for 27 rounds to play state of origin speed. So it's kind of like we almost, you know, I'd love to be a fly on the wall to know if there's a call. Okay, now it's switched back on, because, you know, it looked like we were under control and we just flicked the switch when we were ready in that Knights game. So I don't know. You're definitely right, particularly with the Panthers. Their defense is offense. It's just so smothering, and we probably don't get the post-contact meters or the big meters from our centres. It's just coming from Dallin and Montoya. But if you can get Roger there, like you said, getting 150 odd meters as well. I watched some highlights of one of his games over the last couple of weeks with the Blues, just out of curiosity, and he's still got that step, bro.
He does. He does. He's lethal. What I love about his sidestep too is he's majority of it, like if you actually watch a lot of his work, it's mainly, I'm pretty sure it's mainly always a left foot step, but the way he hides it is like the key to the way he does it. The way he shimmies and like where he always gets off that left, everyone knows he's going that way. But the power he generates through that step is something I haven't seen in a long time. Like Shawnee's had some moments with Goosies and stuff like that, and the way Shawnee floats, but Sheck doesn't really float. He just like bing bing. Like it's awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was listening to someone was talking. I can't remember who it was. They were talking about Braithen Astor's step back in the day. That he wouldn't step into the gap. He would step into the weak shoulder. And literally accelerate into that, so that means you've got more room between the player that you're stepping and the guy outside him. And I think I'd have to have a look at it. I reckon RTS does that as well, because he actually accelerates off that step. The other thing he does is he accelerates into contact. Very hard.
He does. He does.
Yeah, excited. I mean, some people are a bit apprehensive, but I just think he's too much of a consummate professional that it won't work.
No.
Particularly with the way Webby plays a lot of footy during the off season, like it's like 90% footy focus. So he will have played half a seasons of footy before he gets out to round one, man. But so we'll wrap up now with what are your dreams for next season? Where do you imagine we'll finish, and why do you reckon we'll finish there? We'll just focus on the regular season. Let's not. We won't go past that.
Nah, exactly. Definitely, my big expectations in this year is continuing just to grow as a club. See, where I don't want to look at our seasons as I want to get us to top 2, top 3. Obviously, they'll be absolutely amazing, but I just want to see us consistently grow as a club the way Webby has done through the last year, where he just put the pieces in the right places during the year, and that also ties into our development. So I want to see the one key thing I do want to see for us as a whole franchise alone is our New South Wales Cup team make I know you said regular season, but I want to see our New South Wales Cup team make a GF and get to a level like that. We got the talent to do so. I believe that, especially with the team that we have there with Ronnie and all those boys down there, and that especially, you know, RTS coming in, whether one of our centers are going to have to drop back into Cup as well. We're going to have a lot more experience in Cup as well. I want to see our Cup team do absolutely amazing things, but with the NRL squad, I want us to make top 8, of course. That's always the big thing. That's always the big key for us, making the finals again. I want us to see us at least in that top 6 sort of talk. I want us to get around that sort of range. It wouldn't really bother me to see us in like 7th, 8th. I want us to see us in that 6. But mainly, you know, my big expectations for next year is just to continue our development program, continue to see all these young juniors that we have coming through, because like we've spoken about it, as you said, I know you watch a little bit of our Cup team and SG Ball team and all that sort of stuff, that our talent coming through the grade right now is very, very valuable. There's so many good talent. Halasima, I love watching him play at the moment. Stowers Smith, I think he's absolutely amazing for the future. Big Zion. I want to see these guys start to get a taste now of like first grade and maybe dropping back and continuing on to grow. That's my big expectation. It's nothing crazy. I don't expect us to go absolutely mental. I'd love for us to win a grand final and do everything that we want to do on that. But I understand it all takes time. The way the Panthers grew is exactly the way I want to see the Warriors do it, because I believe we have the same structures to what the Panthers actually do. I believe we have the same like talent in the backyard, like the New Zealand Kiwis and the Mouldy boys out there and all that. They've all got just as much talent as all these Aussie boys that are out in Penrith and all the Island boys out in Penrith. I believe they have just as much, even more. So I expect us to grow into a team to where everyone goes, all right, these guys are going to become a powerhouse. So that doesn't come in 1 or 2 years, the way Webby's done it right now on that. I just want to see us continue the baby steps and grow, not fall back. That's the biggest thing. I don't want us to see us fall back into where we start to fall away in contests and we start to put our heads down and the crowd's starting to go down and just we lose that season that we just had. That's the one thing I want to see.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I always use it in my work as saying, look, I just look for better. I want us to see us do the same good things we did. That's the benchmark.
Yep.
And add a couple of layers that are a little bit better. And if we play that exact same level of football and it's not good enough for top 4, so be it. I don't want to see us not make top 4 because we didn't deliver at the same level we delivered this year.
Exactly.
Because we've still 60, 70%, I think, of what we're capable of as a 100%. Club under Webby, our top grade team, when he adds the layers and maybe a couple of these young guys come through. So I just want to see that standard and that mindset and the heart and the willingness to fight to that last minute continue to grow. The skill and development will come. You know, I think we've got every chance of making top 4 again if we play like this.
100%.
I think we'd have to add a couple of players, I think, to genuinely make top 2, unless we see major injuries, just because I think of the power in the middle of both the Panthers and the Broncos, though both of them losing, Flegler and Lenu is a huge out for both of them.
Exactly,
so that brings them back to the pack a little bit. But yeah, I'm realistic, but I just want to see that consistency in the fight so we keep getting the crowds there and keep attracting people to the club. Well, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Let's not
it's been amazing.
Wait another whole season before we do it again. I'd love to get you on for another chat as we go through the year. If you haven't checked out the Bros channel, go and have a look. I think it's one of the most polished NRL-focused content pages out there. I've tried to level my game up watching the bro here with his setting in the background there, adding a bit of colour and stuff and getting a decent mic. But I love the original style. You can see you've put in a lot of effort and work into your craft.
Thanks, bro.
Like literally when I first started this, I didn't really look. All I did is try to figure out how I could connect my phone to my computer, and I couldn't do that, so I just recorded it on my phone and then airdropped it my computer and slowly built it there. But you can see yours is a very well honed craft. So check them out, guys. And stay tuned. We'll hopefully get him back on for a pre-season preview once we see what's happening next year. Cheers,
100%. Cheers, Bob.